I'm Harrison Kelly with BYU-Idaho Radio. I've got on the phone Gary Kofinas. He's the chairman of Teton Backcountry Alliance. He's also a proponent of safety measures on the Teton Pass. I appreciate you coming on the show with me.
Gladly.
Yeah, so this is a pretty hot topic in the area right now. Teton Pass has seen a lot of really horrific crashes in its lifetime, but also within the last few years and especially in the last few months. And it's a critical route for commuters between, the East Idaho area, the Teton Valley, and Jackson Hole area, western Wyoming. And like I said earlier, you see a lot of horrific accidents there. I want to ask you, why do you feel like the pass is so susceptible to a lot of these horrific crashes?
There are a number of reasons. One is the road. It is one of the steepest roads in Wyoming, if not the country. It has stretches of 10%, these straightaways with curves. It is an area that gets extreme weather conditions. We get massive amounts of snow on Teton Pass. So that's the road itself. The road crosses several avalanche paths. And then there are the drivers. We have, in the winter, somewhere around 10,000 a day crossing Teton Pass on average. And in the summer months, in the peak of tourism and activities, 14 to 15,000 cars a day. And if we look at who's driving the pass, that tells us something. It's many tourists. It's mostly our workforce in Jackson Hole, so it's commuters. The tourists are coming in their own vehicles and truck vehicles, but often renting RVs that they may have just rented in Idaho Falls or Salt Lake. And some people are putting trailers as big as their RVs on their behind their RVs. And then we have the commercial vehicles. We have the dump trucks, the semis. We have just trucks hauling all kinds of stuff with trailers. And many of the truckers are skilled and very knowledgeable at how to drive Teton Pass, but not all of them are. If you don't know about downshifting, you have a vehicle that doesn't downshift well, Jake brakes. If you're driving an RV and you try to downshift, if you're going too fast, it won't downshift. You can burn out your transmission. Ultimately, a lot of these accidents are the consequence of what they say is brake failure, but it's really the consequence of operator failure, of either not understanding how to drive their vehicle or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So those are some of the reasons. In the winter months, I think starting, November 15th or so, I can't remember, all the way to the end of March, trailers are prohibited. And of course that opens up. Vehicles are permitted with up to 60,000 pounds. And that can be a fair amount of weight. And so those are some of the reasons this pass has resulted in, my count, if we go back to the beginning of the highway in 1969, 34 fatalities. Wow.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you mentioned,
go ahead.
Large vehicles being one of the issues here, and I know that this issue is pretty personal to you. Back in July, your dear friend David Page passed away from a dump truck that lost its brakes, lost control, whatever. And you were supposed to be in that vehicle. How did surviving that near miss shape your drive and your resolve to,
I would have to say surviving did not affect me. What affected me was the loss of David, the loss of Nick, the other fatality. You have and David was a colleague and a friend, but we weren't bosom buddies. We were working together to protect public lands in the Teton region. He was the executive director of the Winter Wildlands Alliance, a wonderful organization that works on behalf of skiers and promoting human-powered backcountry travel. And, we were getting together because the Grand Targhee Resort wants to expand beyond its boundaries and basically consume some of our backcountry and affect wildlife. So we were strategizing, calling lawyers that we're working with, and he was on his way to meet with a group of citizens in Driggs who are also concerned about this development. And I was going to go, but there weren't many people. But what really affected me was, bam, he left, and I would say within 7 minutes, he hit that truck. And then on the night of the 17th, the night before last, an RV pulling a trailer lost its brakes, and we had a horrible accident with many injured parties and with a young infant who had to be life flighted out. And, it just drives home the need. And, what are we? We're just people trying to make the world better. And, in David's name and many others, I decided to throw some energy into it, along with some of my dear colleagues, my friends, who are also residents of both Teton County, Idaho, and Teton County, Wyoming.
Right. And following those different incidences, of course, have spiked a lot of community togetherness and outcry. And I understand earlier in the month, you guys put together a meeting to address some of these safety issues. What was the primary consensus of the emotion voiced by everybody in that meeting?
I think the primary consensus was not a specific solution. The primary consensus was the status quo is not acceptable. Let's do something, and let's do something soon. David and Nick died, and then, Mike and his wife were injured, and other people were injured on July 7th. What's it been, 7 weeks? 5 days after his accident, thereabouts 5 days, an RV pulling a trailer as big as the RV lost its brakes and was careening down. It's been videoed and it's online everywhere, and didn't hurt anyone, but came damn close. And then, of course, last night, the night before last, we had that horrible accident. And even after that, we had observations of a dump truck pulling a skid steer or something that was smoking its brakes and was eventually pulled over by highway patrol. So the consensus was, let's make it safer. And we need to think carefully about how to do that. We need to act immediately, and we need to also think long term.
Right. And I want to talk about some of those steps. Some of those ideas. I know commercial drivers at the meeting, they argued that they can cross safety with proper technique, and others want, heavy trucks and larger vehicles restricted. Where do you stand on regulating the commercial freight on that road?
I think that a lot of those drivers, like Yellow Iron, Opie, the owner of Yellow Iron Trucking, and a few others, I think they're right. The right kind of driver and the right kind of equipment can go across that pass with even more weight than is permitted, and they're sometimes allowed to do that. But there are many who have no idea, or they're fly-by-night operations, or they're an RV driver who has a big rig who burns out his brakes and can be just as lethal as a truck. That's my feeling. What are the solutions? I think there's short-term solutions. There's signage. There's things we can do where people get automatic alerts, just like you get an automatic alert that there's an accident ahead. Working with Google and Apple, so that when some driver who doesn't really speak English turns on his phone and is told to go a certain ways, he's alerted, this is a dangerous pass and you might want to consider. Our group in the short term has put forward just yesterday a moratorium, which is a short-term cessation of semis, trailered vehicles, RVs, heavy trucks. Until we put something in place, let's do something soon, and then let's get some things in place maybe we have a permitted system for the guys who drive that all the time and drive big rigs. There is a weigh station on the west side of the pass. It's in Idaho. It's in Wyoming, near state line, and it isn't staffed. And not that weight is the only issue. Brake checks are very important, but brake checks are hard because you need people who can do that. And then finding people to staff some kind of port of entry, there are many in the state of Wyoming, is also expensive. Getting a house, and even Victor, much less Jackson, for staff is expensive. So, I would go as far as to say one of the underlying problems and solutions is to adequately fund the Wyoming Department of Transportation, and with it, which is a part of that department, is the Wyoming Highway Patrol. It's not like if they had more resources, they could do more. And what exactly they do, there are a lot of options. Maybe an additional arrestor, I don't know. Definitely signage and alerts and such. So there are many things and many solutions, and highway engineers, one of whom I'm not, can tell you a whole list. And we have some of that stuff posted on tetonpass.org, where we're putting up some material.
Well, that's great information for the folks at home to know, where they can turn to see, what different steps you guys are taking. So I understand. So you're saying, you're wanting to increase personnel at, the weigh stations, the brake check areas, different, you want Wyoming Highway Patrol to patrol that area maybe with a more increased presence. I'm curious, what different steps, I know that WYDOT, they control that whole roadway, even into Idaho. And what different steps are you wanting them to take aside from, manning the weigh stations and the brake areas, improving signage? What other areas are you wanting them to improve long term?
Well, let me correct you, because you said I want this, that, and the other. And there are a number of things that I think can improve, and exactly and how it works need to be understood better and evaluated. But signage, for example, is a no-brainer. Do we have a port of entry? Can we do that? That's an open question, but it could make a difference. Another arrestor. A lot of people say, why do we need another arrestor? The guy on July 2nd passed two of them, careened right past them and then killed people. So what are the steps? I think, our little citizens group is going to have a visit with some WYDOT representatives. They are talking within their agency about what to do. They're acutely aware that this is an issue that needs action. We need to put our heads together and rely on the experts and do something that's significant. That's, I guess, my bottom line, is do something that really helps. And that's why we're saying, we can keep having conversations, and we can do a study, and we can identify what are the critical issues in every accident and try and come up with the variables that really matter. But for now, we should just have those trucks go to Swan Valley and go around until we figure it out. And as we figure it out, as we make it work, then let's open it up and do it the right way. But until then, we're just having repeated accidents. And, I want to be able to look at David and Nick's wives and their kids and just say, we did everything we could. And I know WYDOT has an ethical responsibility to do that. And safety is first and foremost.
Right.
So that's a roundabout way of saying, we need to collaborate. We need to work together. We need to act immediately for short-term solutions and work towards medium and long-term solutions.
I know public meetings and public causes usually have a lot of momentum, and sometimes it kind of can fade away over time. What are you doing to ensure state and local officials follow through with those things?
We're just, we're keeping the press up, and these accidents don't hurt in terms of getting people's attention. They're going, oh my God, enough. So, we're reaching out, we're meeting people, we're, doing a little study of our own. We're trying to formulate what's the best position. We're getting people together. There's just so many options, and no one solution is going to solve the problem. Wyoming, Department of Highway Patrol has jurisdiction for, enforcement there. An agreement could be made between Teton County, Wyoming, and Wyoming Department of Highway Patrol, where there's some shared jurisdiction, and the Teton County Sheriff's Department could have vehicles over there, perhaps more often, since Highway Patrol is really strapped for enough people, enough patrollers, enough. So anyhow, that's what we're doing, is just continuing to talk and push it along and bring public attention.
That's good to know. And how can residents get involved in helping make this pass safer?
I would again point you to tetonpass.org. Write your legislator, express your concern, go in and sign up for the newsletter. If there's a public meeting, attend. If legislation gets put forward in the next legislative session, speak up, write. We do have a voice and we do have power, and let's do something that, like I said, let's not be satisfied with the status quo. Let's not look for a one-year study. Let's not think, oh, well, we're going to do this construction project because that's going to take a year or two to do. Let's do something immediate. Let's do something medium term. And let's work towards long-term solutions. And, this isn't an anti-truck thing. This isn't a, Citizens Against WYDOT. They've done incredible work. Like when the road washed out, they put it together in no time. They've been collaborating, and, they can be heroes here, and we want to help them be that. So.
Well, Gary, Thank you for coming on, talking a little bit about this safety issue. We appreciate it.
Gladly.
That was an interview with Gary Kofinas. He's the chairman with the Teton Backcountry Alliance. He is a proponent for greater safety measures along the Teton Pass. For more information, go to tetonpass.org. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Weekdays on BYU-Idaho Radio. Savannah McCauley had this hour's music, and I had the interview. Join us tomorrow for another episode at noon and 6 p.m. I'm Harrison Kelly. Be informed, be inspired. BYU-Idaho Radio.